Hello, this is Josh with Lapin Bookkeeping Services, and today we are here with another installment of our Do It Yourself series where we help teach you to do accounting yourself. And today we are going to continue on this series with how to set up your chart of accounts. So, if you're new to QuickBooks and new to accounting, there are some other videos on how to get started with QuickBooks that are before this video. So check those videos out when you get a chance or if you need to. But today we're going to talk about the next step in the journey of getting your QuickBooks and your accounting system set up, and that is to establish a chart of accounts. So I am in a QuickBooks sample company right now. We're going to be talking primarily about the chart of accounts for real estate investors today. So there might be some differences slightly, but we will go over those. So I guess the first thing that we need to do is once you've logged into your QuickBooks account, you're going to probably come to a screen similar to this. And what you want to do is navigate over to your left-hand side menu bar here. And QuickBooks changes things. So if you're looking at this video at a later date and it's not quite matching up, that's because QuickBooks is constantly updating and changing things. But for today, as of this recording, you can find your chart of accounts by going over here and then selecting transactions. And then you go down to chart of accounts, and it should bring them up. There's also another way, I believe, if you go over here to the gear icon and go to list, you can see your chart of accounts here, and you can also find it under the list. So there's usually 2 or 3 ways to get to places and procedures and processes within QuickBooks. So here we are within our chart of accounts. And the reason we're talking about this is because this is kind of your backbone of your accounting system. These are all the accounts that you're going to use to funnel all of your transactions, all of your income, your expenses, things to do with a bank account. Since we're talking about real estate, mortgages, security deposits, all that kind of stuff. All that is got to have an account set up for it, which you're going to find that in the chart of accounts. Now, when you first set up QuickBooks, I know currently sometimes they'll ask you when you're first setting up your account, what kind of business or industry that you're in, and it'll try to kind of pre-select a chart of accounts that will correspond to your business type. So it's going to be a very generic chart of accounts, and it'll probably be enough to kind of get you going, but you're going to need to customize it at some point in the future, and that's kind of what we're talking about today. So the chart of accounts is going to be very specific to each business type. We're talking about real estate accounting today, and I will show you a general setup for a chart of accounts, but everybody's business is unique, and you will need to customize your chart of accounts for your particular business, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. So, QuickBooks will give you a very generic chart of accounts to get started with. This one's already kind of pre-populated because it's a sample demo company. So it may look slightly different, but the application is very similar. So the way the chart of accounts is set up is first you're going to have your assets at the very top. So you can see your assets, which is going to include things like your bank accounts, accounts receivable, any physical assets you might own, in this case, a vehicle. And for real estate, you're also going to include your properties as an asset here as well. And we'll probably discuss exactly how to do that in another video, because I don't want to make this video too overwhelming to start with. So you'll have your assets listed at the top. Next, you're going to have your liabilities. Liabilities are simply things that you owe someone else. So like a loan payable, if you're paying any kinds of specialized taxes, that would be a liability, things of that nature. Followed by your equity section, which is your equity is the money that you have left over theoretically after all your assets and liabilities. So if you subtract the liabilities from your assets, what you have left over is your equity. In a very broad general sense, there's more to it than that, but I don't want to overcomplicate the subject at hand. Followed by that, you're going to have your income types here. You can have various income types. This actually is more income than I think is needed. It's a little bit complicated, but that's beside the point. Then after income, you're going to have your expenses. So this is typically how a chart of accounts is laid out. It's laid out in this format. And you can see there are specific things that need to be addressed within chart of accounts. Each account has to have some kind of name that identifies it. It has to have an account type, which we'll talk about in just a minute, and a detail type. And then this is the actual balance. You have a section of QuickBooks balance versus bank balance, which is also topic for another day. So with all that, let's get more into the details of real estate chart of accounts. So I have prepared a very general basic chart of accounts that we can kind of go over to look at. As I said earlier, everybody's chart of accounts is going to be different, and you will need to be customized by you, and I'm going to show you here closer to the end of the video exactly how you can do that. But for real estate purposes, assets, you're probably going to have some kind of fixed assets. A fixed asset could include land, it could include buildings, it could include tools that you own. If you have a vehicle dedicated for real estate, it would include things like that. Any other equipment. And the general rule is to be considered an asset, the initial value needs to be over $2,500. So if you go to the store and you buy a hammer for $100, yes, that's going to be a tool that you're going to probably use in your business if you're a flipper or something like that. But over the long term, that's not going to be considered an asset because of the value. So that's something to keep in mind and consider when you're doing this kind of work, the accounting. Next, you're going to have your liabilities section. So common liabilities for real estate investors could include accounts payable. If you do billing out of QuickBooks, you would have that. That would be a liability. Tenant security deposits is a big one. Those are liabilities for the owners of real estate rental properties. If you have mortgages or notes financing the real estate, that is going to be a liability as well. So, and then we're going to proceed into the equity section, which I'm going to give you a very general overview. I don't want to. The equity section can be quite complicated as well. For the purposes of our discussion today, I'm just giving an example of what the chart of accounts would be for an LLC, which is a very common entity type that real estate investors use. So generally for that kind of entity, you would have an owner's contributions and owner's distributions and retained earnings. So that is the setup for the equity section. Okay, so after owner's equity section, you would have your income. Um, Again, very specific to your business type, but imagine you would have some kind of rental income, perhaps late fees, application fees. If you have a larger site that has laundry units, you could perhaps have those in place for collecting money, parking income, pet fees. The list could be very, very long, exactly what you would need to have for income. But here's just a few examples. And then for your expenses, also very broad here. Perhaps advertising, listing fees, bank fees, HOA dues, insurance, professional, legal, accounting fees, maintenance, repairs, management fees, office fees, expenses, vehicle expenses if you have a vehicle in your business. So again, the list could be very long and comprehensive. So that's some potential things that may need to be listed in the HOA and in the chart of accounts, also known as the COA. And so you may be thinking now, okay, I've got my chart of accounts. I got the one that QuickBooks set up for me, but I'm missing things. So, what can I do to make this like I need it? So there's two ways that you can do that, depending on how much you need. If you just need to add a few basic accounts to your chart of accounts, which you go over here to this green button and you hit new, and it's going to bring a pop-up menu, and it's going to ask you basically, what kind of account do you need to add? So I recommend that you do not use this function to add bank accounts or credit cards unless your bank card or credit card cannot be connected to QuickBooks. And we're going to talk about that in a different video. But in general, I think that you should only use this to add an income, an expense, an asset, a liability, or an equity account. So just for example, let's say that we bought a new house, and this is going to be a very basic transaction. A house would be a fixed asset, and this is where you need to fill out some of your detailed information. You would choose fixed asset, then you would go to your tax form selection, and this is going to be a building, and then you would list your property as, let's say, 123 Main Street, and then you would save it. And if you scroll down through the QuickBooks here, this is listed as a fixed asset building, 123 Main Street. Now the value is now currently 0, but that has to be either added through the bank account or a journal entry or something like that, which is also a different video for a different day. But that's basically how you would add a single item to the chart of accounts. So there again, if you had, I don't know, a new expense that needed to be added, you would come to here. And this save under thing is just asking you if you want to create sub categories. But for our purposes, we're just going to put it under expense. And I don't know, let's say that we're adding some contract labor. These are some contractors. We want to keep up with our contractors' expense, which is very common in real estate. So we would add that, and you scroll down, and somewhere in here would be under expenses, you would have your contractors, which is also a cost of labor. So anytime you're adding anything to your chart of accounts, you have to have a name, you have to have an account type, and you have to have a detail type as well, which all that is contained within this information right here when you're adding. So that's if you want to add a single account. If you know you have multiple accounts that you want to add to QuickBooks and you're comfortable with manipulating QuickBooks and technology in general, you could also import a file. So if you click on that function, it'll bring this up. And what I recommend is that you download first this sample file, which will bring you up something like this. And it's going to have exactly kind of the thing we were looking at in the chart of accounts. It's going to have your account number, your account name, the account type, and the detail type. So what you would do is if you have multiple things, you would just go fill out each item. Now the account number is optional. Some people like to set up a system where they actually have account numbers in their chart of accounts, because it can be easier to remember an account number. I mean, you still have to fill all this stuff in, but if you have an account number before it, and you use that account number a lot, it's very easy to search in QuickBooks. So that's why it's used occasionally. Again, that's totally optional for you if you want to use account numbers or not. There is a kind of an order to those, which we could probably talk about at a different time, but if you want to add it, this would be a place to do it. So, once you have your sheet filled out, you would essentially, it needs to either be a CSV or an Excel. You would attach it to this and you would upload it, and QuickBooks would dump it right into the chart of accounts for you automatically. It would just go ahead and add it to your list here. Now, if you look up here, depending on what subscription level that you have, you're going to have a limit to your chart of accounts, the amount of accounts that you have. So just keep an eye on that to make sure you don't exceed it. For most real estate investors, at least the real estate investors that I work with, 250 is going to be more than enough. It's probably excess for you, but it's just something to keep in mind. Another thing as well is if you find that you're not using a chart of accounts regularly, you can close it out. So this Visa card, let's just say this is an old card that I'm not using anymore. If you go over to this drop down arrow here, you can change it to inactive, and it will hide that account from your chart of accounts. So these never really go away, because for historical and auditing purposes, accountants need to see where things came from originally. So that account has been inactivated, has been hidden, but it is still available if you ever needed to look at it. You would go to your gear icon too and hit include inactive, and it would show back up in your chart of accounts. It's a deleted account, but you still have a way to view those. And that also helps clear out space if you need to add some custom chart of accounts and you're getting close to your limit. So that is a very quick overview of the chart of accounts. If you happen to need help with these things and getting yours customized, we do have services available for that. Just reach out to us and we can help guide you to the right selection for you. So again, this is another installment in our series. We're going to be bringing out some more here in the very short time period in the near future. So check back for those, and we hope that this has been helpful for you.